Hello again, fight fans, and welcome to another edition of the Neutral Corner. This is episode number 120 of TNC. I am Michael Montero for Boxing Monthly Magazine and BoxingMonthly.com. Before I get started with this episode, I just want to give a shout out to everybody that's supporting MOB on our Patreon page. We had 4 new people join Patreon this month in April. And I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody that's been supporting us on Patreon, going all the way back to last year. All the members of the MOB family: Michael Barrios, Raul Ruelas, Jonathan Sandoval, Timmy Turner, Roy Smith, Too Tough, Florian Seagreast, Kevin Frey, Wenceslao Cano, Michael R. Atkins, Brad Lundgren, Boxing Tech, Cat Clemens III, Joel Morgan, Anbu, Robert Palmer, Jay Gormley, Ryan Meza, a.k.a. Dempsey, Sean Thompson, Greg Frick, Rex Afraziabi, Paulo Vega, John Newman, Michael O'Connor, Ken Young, Jacinto Martinez, John Landerbog, Nicholas Cantu, and Austin J. Guys, thank you so much. Honestly, I can't put it into words how much we appreciate this. There's 4 of you guys who have already donated over $100. Jonathan Sandoval, Kevin Frey, Joel Morgan, Greg Frick. You guys, I know some of you have already bought shirts, but those of you who haven't yet, we're going to get some MLB shirts out to you guys. We'll be in contact with you. But for those of you who haven't got to our Patreon yet, check it out. Patreon.com/Montero Unboxing. Also, I'll remind all of you, go to Apple Podcasts, find the Neutral Corner Podcast, give us a like, rating, review, follow us, etc., etc. Tell everybody about it. All right, guys, that's it. Let's get into news and notes. All right, so if I sound a little tired, it's because I started my day off driving. Actually, I had to get up at 7 in the morning and drive from downtown LA to Santa Monica to film new episodes of 10 Count for Undisputed Champion Network. The reason why we had to start so early is because Tom Loeffler wanted to come in and do an episode with us that I hosted along with Doug Fisher, and probably went about 30 minutes. I asked Tom a bunch of questions, a bunch of the questions you guys have been asking about the Canelo situation, why they went with Martirosyan, why they had to stick with May 5th, what's going on with the IBF and Sergey Derevyanchenko. We brought up Jermall Charlo, who's now the WBC mandatory, talked about a lot of stuff. But he had to get there and do that early because he had to get from Santa Monica all the way up to Glendale to do the workouts today, the Golovkin-Martirosyan media workouts. So those of us who were filming 10 Count, that was myself, Michael Baca, Doug Fisher, we had to do that. We weren't able to make it to the workouts. But Steve Kim, he did a couple quick episodes and then he skated out too and got up to Glendale to do the workouts. For those of you guys, who don't live in LA and don't know, that's probably, I want to say, 20 plus miles distance from Santa Monica to Glendale, and you have to go by or through downtown to get there. So traffic-wise, that's easily an hour and a half. So Tom Loeffler did plenty of driving this morning. So did Steve Kim. Myself, I wasn't able to do it. We shot probably 6 or 7 episodes of 10 Count, and those will be loaded up in the coming weeks. So look for that. There should be one reviewing last weekend's fights, which I'll do in this episode of TNC, obviously. But we did an episode of 10 Count reviewing the fights. That should be posted within a day or two. And then we did an episode previewing what's coming up this week. That should be posted this week as well. All right, so let's see. What else is going on? Well, yes, there's that guy named Canelo Alvarez. He's been suspended for 6 months by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, retroactive to February 17th, the first dirty test. Now, actually, Nevada had to, per their bylaws, I think they had to suspend him for at least 9 to 24 months. So technically, they suspended him for 12 months. But what they did is, per their bylaws, they could cut a suspension in half if the fighter who had the anti-doping violation cooperated with basically everything, their investigation and the meetings and the hearings and all that stuff. And Canelo and Golden Boy did. So they immediately cut that suspension from 1 year to 6 months. Now everything's good to go for a Canelo return on September 15th. right around Mexican Independence Day holiday. And of course, immediately after that hearing, Golden Boy Promotions announces, Canelo's going to be back Saturday, September 15th, likely to be in Las Vegas. The question on everyone's mind, is it going to be the Golovkin rematch? And I asked Tom Loeffler that today, and he shed some insight into what him and Team Golovkin are doing. I'll talk more about that later on. Also, you'll see that episode of 10 Count on Undisputed Champion Network. So we'll see what happens with Canelo. I don't know, man. Is he going to want to come back and do a tune-up, have a layup fight to, shake off the ring rust, and then fight Golovkin early next year? Because the impression I got from Loeffler is that if that happens, they're not even going to go forward with a rematch. They're just going to move forward with their career and go after Billy Joe Saunders for September 15th or around that time. So we'll see what happens. But that is a situation that is ongoing and in flux. And it was just weird. Just before the hearing, Canelo posted pictures of himself, I think on Instagram, getting surgery to his knee. Apparently there was a cyst in his knee. Just the optics of that look so weird, so peculiar. He didn't go to the hearing. He got surgery on his knee 2 days before the biggest hearing of his professional career. The whole thing is just kind of odd, man. And then the whole thing with Oscar De La Hoya that came out and the kitchen utensils, just weird, man. Anyway, Sergey Kovalev, he's not going to fight Lucas Browne. Lucas Browne has legal issues. He's been arrested twice, domestic incidents with his baby mama. So he can't fight. So now Sergey Kovalev is going to fight Eleider Alvarez, which is actually a better fight. And Alvarez has been Adonis Stevenson's mandatory for 752 years. Hasn't got the chance to fight him. Now he gets Sergey Kovalev, who's better than Adonis Stevenson and a more worthy foe. I like that fight a lot. So it's going to happen this summer at some point. It's going to be on HBO, but the actual date, the actual venue, still TBA. As soon as I know something for sure, I'll definitely let you guys know. Of course, Golovkin versus Vanes Martirosyan is official now for May 5th at StubHub Center. Tickets started at $50, when I think all the way to $750 for ringside seats. The $50 and $100 price tickets have already sold out. In fact, again, I talked to Tom Loeffler earlier today. We asked him about that. He said sales are going pretty well. And again, $50, $100 sold out. So they're going to do pretty well on this card. It's not just that Golovkin's coming back to StubHub Center for the first time since he fought Marco Antonio Rubio. It's also that Vanes Martirosyan, Armenian-American fighter, has fought and sparred just about every damn fighter in Los Angeles over the past decade plus. I mean, going back to the amateurs. The fans, in the Armenian fans in Glendale, they're going to come out in full force. I mean, there's a reason Tom Loeffler chose to do the Golovkin-Martirosyan media workouts in Glendale. Golovkin's never worked out in Glendale. They did it there to get the Armenian fans excited. He's hoping and banking on those fans buying tickets and coming out to support that event May 5th. Also, when it comes to, picking Martirosyan, I know a lot of people are down on that. They hate the fight. I understand it. But for the life of me, I can't understand why you guys are mad at Team Golovkin. Again, I will refer to the episode of 10 Count we shot today where I pressed Loeffler about why they went with Martirosyan versus Derevyanchenko and some of the other guys and why they had to stick with May 5th, why ultimately they left Las Vegas and wanted to come to LA. The deal, everything in Vegas with the casinos and the executives that run them, very, very complicated. And they simply put, they wanted more time to do a bigger name for a fight in June. And certain opponents like Saunders and those guys were not available for May 5th. So a Vegas pay-per-view fight just wasn't going to work. And when it comes to Los Angeles, being able to make money and do a profitable promotion on 3 weeks' notice, you need to have an LA fighter. So there's a lot to it, and I'm not going to get into it all here because that episode of 10 Count, like I said, it's about half an hour long, and it's going to give you guys all the details. I'll just say, again, all things being considered, well, actually two things, okay? Number one, for Team Golovkin, this is the best out of a really shitty situation. Number two, if you're pissed about this event in general, don't blame Golovkin. Blame Canelo. He's the one with the anti-doping violation. All right, other news. Mikey Garcia vacates his IBF 140-pound title. Now he's decided he's going to defend his WBC 135-pound belt, which is the complete opposite of what he said he was going to do a month or so ago. I can't keep up with Mikey Garcia and his bipolar and up and down, hot, cold, left, right bullshit. I guess right now he's going to go back down to 135. I think that's the better move for him because he's better at 135 to 140. Also, now that Lomachenko's moving up and he's going to fight Jorge Linares, that's going to be for the number one spot for the Ring Magazine Lineal Championship. Mikey Garcia probably is going to try to wiggle into that to get himself a big fight. We'll see what happens. Carlos Cuadras, the Mexican fighter, suspended for refusing to do an anti-doping test via the WBC's clean boxing program, dropped from the WBC's ratings. Now, this is a situation where I give the WBC credit. They have a program. The protocol is laid out plainly for anyone to follow. They post it online, so there's total transparency there. And Cuadras is a Mexican fighter, and they're punishing him for refusing to take a test, which they should. They get accused, WBC does, of being biased toward Mexican fighters. They're based in Mexico City, and they've shown favoritism to Mexican fighters in the past. But there are times, Luis Neri, who missed weight in a fight earlier this year, they suspended him, dropped him, right? Carlos Cuadras now refusing to take a test, dropped him from the ratings. Okay, I want to see the same treatment of Canelo. I want to see the same treatment of stars. That's my issue with the BC here. They're real quick to dole out punishments for other fighters, but it seems with Canelo Alvarez, since that falling out they had, the last time they forced Canelo to fight by their rules, you go back to that situation when Canelo beat Miguel Cotto for the WBC middleweight title. He inherited Cotto's mandatory, Gennady Golovkin. And the BC, Canelo just thought he was going to get an exception. He was going to just get to not fight Golovkin for a year or so and get the Adonis Stevenson treatment. Well, they weren't dealing with PBC. They were dealing with Tom Loeffler, who knows what he's doing, and he had the BC's nuts in a vice in that situation. They forced Canelo to go by the rules. Canelo got pissed, right? They had this big falling out. Ever since then, the WBC's been kissing his ass. I just like the BC. I'd like to see them be consistent. And one of the biggest things about this suspension that I still haven't got a straight answer on, and I'm still digging into it, guys, and I'll let you know, why isn't a full VADA testing, mandatory drug testing for Canelo happening as part of his suspension? And I'm not talking about the WBC's clean boxing program. I'm talking about the same treatment that we saw for guys like Alexander Povetkin, who I've been hard on, Lucas Brown, who I've been hard on, other fighters who had to take additional testing in a probationary time frame, I think for about a year at their expense. We should be seeing that from Canelo Alvarez during this suspension. And the fact that he's not, at least to my knowledge right now, he's not. It's not part of the suspension. That's just odd. And it's not right. It's basically a slap on the wrist, and he can go back to doing whatever the hell he was doing before. So I'll dig into that more, and I'll let you guys know what I find out. Also, O2 Arena for July 21st is the possible date and venue for a possible IBF heavyweight eliminator bout between Dillian Whyte and Kubrat Pulev. Remember, Pulev was in line to be the IBF mandatory to fight Anthony Joshua. He got hurt. Carlos Takam came in for him. So he's still lined up to fight, to get that eliminator fight, to be back in the running to fight AJ. And they're talking about getting him and Dillian Whyte in the ring together. They're just negotiating that. Nothing official yet at the time I'm recording this. I'll let you guys know when I hear something. That's it with news and notes for this week. Let's review what happened in the ring around the world last week. Last Thursday, April 19th in San Juan, Puerto Rico, it was another Golden Boy Promotions on ESPN2 card. It was also streamed live on ESPN3.com. In the main event, Lamont Roach and Orlando Cruz fight to a split draw in a 130-pound 10-rounder. The judges had it 97-93 for Roach. One judge had it 96-94 for Cruz. One had it 95-95. Here's the controversy. This was a pretty close, uneventful fight. Not much happened. But late in the fight, it was either the 9th or maybe it was the 10th round. I think it was the 9th round, a left hook to Cruz's head dropped him, but Luis Pabon, the ref, he ruled it a slip incorrectly because it looked like a legitimate knockdown from a punch. Had he called that correctly with as a knockdown, then Lamont Roach would have got the W here. It would have been a majority decision win for him. So again, this is just an example of what I've said 1,000 times before. Boxing needs instant replay. You have 60 seconds between rounds. You have monitors all around the ring where the referee could check out a monitor during that 60 seconds. If there was a mistake that he or she made, they can get right back up in the ring, and right before the start of the next round, they can make a quick announcement to the 3 judges. It's just the same way when they deduct a point. How they say 1 point, then they turn to the other judge, 1 point. They turn to the other judge, 1 point, right? Do the same thing. Turn to one judge, that was a knockdown in the last round, not a slip. Turn to the other judge, say the same thing. Repeat, right? That's it. That's all you got to do. We already have the technology. I don't know why we're doing it, why we're not doing it, because here it is, a situation where a split draw would turn into a majority decision win for a fighter. Or I'm sorry, a split decision win for a fighter. So that matters. Fights like that matter. Or, decisions like that matter. Also, several Puerto Rican prospects on the undercard, they stayed undefeated with W's. This is, Miguel Cotto's promotional company working with Golden Boy Promotions as part of the deal when they signed together a couple years back. Also in Poland on Saturday, April 21st, Tomasz Adamek, who turns 42 years old this year, he scores a TKO 7 win over Minnesota journeyman Joey Ebel. And it was the headliner of a card on Polstat Sport pay-per-view. He defends his Polish heavyweight title, dropped Abel in the 2nd, 6th, and 7th. Abel had beat Krzysztof Zimnok last time he fought in Poland last September. So for Adamek, this is kind of a revenge for his Polish brother to get the W, to get the knockout, and he defends that Polish heavyweight title. He's still a name over there in Poland. He's still headlining pay-per-views over there. So I don't like that the guy's continuing to fight. I hope he hangs him up soon, but he gets the W here. At the Echo Arena in Liverpool in the UK, there was a Matchroom Sky card, but it was also featured here in America on the ESPN Plus app. And I believe this was the first bout with the ESPN Plus app. That's the $4.99 a month app that ESPN just rolled out. Amir Khan scores a TKO 1 win over Phil Logreco, the journeyman from Toronto. Dropped him twice. This was not, to say this was a mismatch would be like doing a disservice to mismatches. This just shouldn't have been sanctioned. Khan improved to 32-4 with 20 knockouts. He was making his ring return since nearly being decapitated by Canelo Alvarez last May, and his first bout after signing with Matchroom Sport. Logreco, I think, has now gone 3-4 in his last 7 bouts. So there you go. On the undercard of this fight, Tommy Coyle scores a TKO 6 win over Sean Dodd, wins his Commonwealth lightweight title. Several UK prospects, or 2016 Olympians Anthony Fowler, Caius Ashfaq, a 2012 Olympian Natasha Jonas, and Connor Ben, Nigel Ben's son, all on the undercard. They remained undefeated, kept on trucking. In Belfast, Northern Ireland, a Frank Warren card on BT Sport, but also screening live here, or really around the world, on Showtime's social media, on their Facebook and YouTube page. Carl Frampton and Onito Donaire go 12 rounds, just like I told you it would. And Frampton scores a unanimous decision win in a fight that he pretty much controlled really from the onset. I mean, Donaire had his moments, but Frampton controlled the pace out, and he dominated in spots and really beat up the older man in spots. Looked very, very fast. I was surprised to see just how much faster he looked in Donaire. After the fight, Donaire did admit that he wanted to go back down to 122. He feels that's a better weight for him. Just not a real featherweight. Not that Frampton is either. Remember, Frampton started at 122 and moved up. But I think Frampton, he's had, I believe, 4 fights now at featherweight. He's 3-1. I really think he's settling into featherweight. I think he's good there. He's obviously still an elite level guy at 126 pounds. And, before this fight, I questioned how dedicated was Frampton to boxing, to training. He looked really, really good in this fight. Is it matchmaking? Did he just, obviously Donaire is long in the tooth. He's well past his best days. Is it just matchmaking and that's what made Frampton look so good? I don't know. He looked really, really good in this fight, though. On the undercard, Zolani TT, first defense of his WBO bantamweight title, scores a unanimous decision over the Argentinian fighter Omar Andres Narvaez. Horrible fight. 120, 108 three times were the scores. The scores weren't even necessary. To talk about this fight would be unnecessary. It was just TT basically in a sparring session, a glorified sparring session against Narvaez. And I forgot to mention the scores for the Frampton-Donaire fight. There were 117, 111 three times. So consistent judging in both those fights. But those were pretty easy fights to score. All right, now over here in the USA at the King's Theater in Brooklyn, I told you guys about that Real Deal Sports an entertainment card that was being put on by Evander Holyfield's promotional company. The main event that they had scheduled, it was going to be Duke Micah, this Ghana fighter, who was a 2012 Olympian for Ghana, going up against a French guy, Johann Duhaupas. But Duhaupas came in 4 pounds heavy, so they canceled the main event. There was a heavyweight fight with a Russian heavyweight Sergey Kuzmin that got bumped up to the main event, I think. He improved to 12-0 with 9 knockouts with a KO 6 win. Also in Brooklyn, much, much bigger card. It was a triple header, PBC on Showtime. The reported attendance was over 13,000 for this. And most of the fans who came out to see the main event, Adrien Broner versus Jessie Vargas. Say what you will about Adrien Broner. And look, there's a lot of things about him I don't like. I think he's a classless piece of shit. But he does numbers. He does TV numbers, and he sells tickets. So love him or hate him, he is a brand. He is a business, an American born and bred fighter that does do business. Aren't many of them around right now, especially guys from the Midwest or the East Coast. So to see Broner, bring in 13,000 plus in the Barclays, and yes, there were comps and there were discounts and stuff, but from what I'm hearing, a lot of these tickets were legitimately sold at sticker price. I'm also hearing from some of you guys who tweeted me and DM'd me over the weekend that the atmosphere there was pretty rough. And there were a lot of fights outside and inside the arena. They had extra security outside and inside the arena. Some of you guys sent me pictures and videos of some of the stuff that was going on. Pretty nasty. That's the downside of the business that guys like Broner bring in with him. But you know what? Money's green. Selling tickets, money's green. So let's talk about the fights. Okay, in the opening fight, Gervonta Davis scores a TKO 3 win over Jesus Cuellar, wins the vacant WBA super featherweight title, or junior lightweight, however you want to say it. Cuellar was down in the second and twice in the third. Davis worked the body early on, which was a smart tactic. He was going upstairs, downstairs, left hand, right hands. It really, really looked spectacular in this fight. But how much of it was just matchmaking? Now, I favored him to win. I favored him to win by knockout. But did I expect 3 rounds? No. It was an impressive performance. I'll give him that. But it's Jesus Cuellar, and at this stage of his career, the guy's pretty washed up. He looked pretty badly faded. But the body work early on is what got Davis to land those big shots upstairs eventually that ended the fight. Also, clearly hurt Cuellar to the body as well, right? So great performance by Davis. He might be the best guy at 130 pounds. We were talking about that today as we were taping a segment. Steve Kim actually hosted a segment of 10 Count with myself and Doug Fisher as a guest. And we were talking about the fact that now that Lomachenko's moved up to 135, perhaps Tank Davis is the best at 130 if he can continue to make the weight. This was for a WBA title, although it shouldn't have been, because, I talked about this last week in the preview portion. Cuellar hadn't fought in 2017. His last fight he lost in 2016, and that was at featherweight at 126. Davis's last fight, he couldn't make weight. He lost his title on the scale. But he got disciplined. He got serious about training again. He looked spectacular here. This is the type of Gervonta Davis we saw that won the title against Jose Pedraza, going back about a little more over a year ago now. And so if he can stay in this form and continue to make 130, man, he could probably unify some titles and do some real damage in that division. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Jermall Charlo in the co-main scores a KO2 win over Hugo Centeno Jr., wins the interim WBC middleweight title, and now he's Gennady Golovkin's mandatory. He called him out in the post-fight presser, or actually before they even got to the presser, right there in the ring, when the Showtime announcers were in there talking to him, he immediately called out Golovkin, so he wants it, right? Well, let's pump the brakes. He knows, and I think the Showtime guys brought this up and asked him about it. Charlo and his people, they're Showtime exclusive. Are they going to be willing to jump ship and go over to HBO the way Daniel Jacobs did? Now, let's remember, Daniel Jacobs did that and went over to HBO to fight Golovkin when he was the mandatory for the WBA, but that also kind of coincided with him leaving Uncle Al and signing with Uncle Eddie of Matchroom, right? So is Jermall Charlo going to do that? I don't think so. I don't see that happening with either of the Charlo brothers. So even though he's the mandatory, that fight with Golovkin, that's going to be a tough one to make. And if and when that does happen, and trust me, guys, I want to see it. I absolutely want to see that fight. But it ain't happening until 2019. There's no damn way that's happening this year anytime soon. We still don't know what the IBF is going to do in regards to Golovkin and Derevyanchenko. Loeffler and Golovkin, they've put in for an exception request from the IBF. They haven't ruled on it yet. So we got to see how it's all going to work out. We got to see how it's all going to work out with this mandatory situation. But Charlo looked awesome. He's looked great. He's got 2 middleweight fights against 2 guys who maybe were ranked in the top 20, but nowhere near the top 10 by any reputable publication's ratings. So passes the eye test, but let's see him in there with a guy who can catch and who can punch at the same time. Let's see if Charlo can catch at 160 pounds. Because right now, he's beat 2 guys that aren't as good as Dominic Wade, a guy that Golovkin blew out. Remember Dominic Wade, his mandatory? I think that was the IBF mandatory. Dominic Wade beats the 2 guys that Charlo has beat so far as a middleweight. So let's not get too excited. Passes the eye test, but let's wait and see if he fights somebody else in the midterm and proves himself against a top 10 middleweight. He's from Houston. There's a big scene blowing up down there right now in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio. The boxing market there is growing. Uncle Al and the management for the Charlo brothers, they need to get these guys busy. I want to see Jermall Charlo fighting again, maybe late this summer, in the fall, in Houston. Keep him busy. Keep building him up at middleweight. And also, every time he gets in the ring and knocks someone out, he drums up interest in the eventual Golovkin fight. So go back a few years, guys, to when Gennady Golovkin was drilling dudes, knocking dudes out, and calling out Canelo Alvarez, right? That was the fight he wanted. That was the big name. That was the scalp he wanted. Chasing Canelo. Charlo's got to be that same way right now with Golovkin. He's got to be active. He's got to be fighting 3-4 times a year, taking short money if need be. I think he only made $500,000 for this fight, which I guess when you look at Charlo's career accomplishments, I guess that's a good payday for him. He's deserving of it, but he needs to get more active. Even if he has to cut down to $250,000, $300,000 and fight 3-4 times this year, start banging the drums for a Golovkin, man. If he does it, he fights often enough, that Golovkin fight will eventually happen. But if you fight once a year against guys like this, and I like Hugo Centeno Jr. He's just an awesome, nice guy. I've met him before at Wildcard Gym while I was working out and stuff. He's a cool guy. He's a nice guy. And he's a decent quality fighter, but he's not at the elite level. He's not in the top 10 as a middleweight, right? Charlo needs to, if you're going to fight this level of opposition, fight 3 or 4 times a year. Stay busy and keep banging the drums for Golovkin. Basically, take a page out of Triple G's book 2-3 years ago when he was chasing Canelo. That's what Charlo needs to do right now. In the main event, Adrien Broner and Jessie Vargas fight to a majority draw at a welterweight fight that was actually a catchweight at 144 pounds. 2 judges had it 114-114 a draw. 1 judge had it 115-113 for Broner. I thought that scorecard was a little too favorable to Broner. I think if you were going to edge it either way, Vargas probably deserved the nod a little bit more, maybe 115-113. Maybe if he had around even 115-114 for Vargas. I thought he just did a little bit more through the first 6, 7, 8 rounds. built up a good lead, but this really was a tale of two fights. The first half of the fight, clearly Vargas won. The second half of the fight, clearly Broner won. And I don't understand what Vargas's game plan was and why halfway through he changed tactics. It started trying to maul and grapple on the inside with Broner. That played right into his strength. When Vargas stayed on the outside and stayed behind his jab and fought long and tall, he was dominating Broner. Honestly, he was clearly winning rounds. He was dominating the fight. I had him up 5-1 after 6 rounds, and I think that's how most people scored it. So he was really, really just touching up Broner in spots and knocking him back, stopping him dead in his tracks. And Vargas is a weak puncher at welterweight. So to see that was pretty amazing. Now, I'll give Broner credit, and I'll give his new trainer and his new team credit for getting in his ass and getting him to change tactics and lighting a fire under his ass. And Broner deserves credit for coming back, for hanging tough. And he's proved he's a tough guy. This guy, he is a tough fighter and he is a competitor. And he worked his way back into the fight. And I'm totally cool with the draw. Totally fine with the draw. I have no issue with that. I do have issue with some of Broner's tactics after the fight. And just talking shit to Vargas when there was just no need to. The first 2 fights on this triple header were complete mismatches. They weren't entertaining unless you're just bloodthirsty and wanted to see knockouts. But in terms of being competitive and entertaining, they weren't. They were shit. The main event, though, was a good competitive fight with ebb and flow, where you had one guy build up a lead and the other guy come back and make it close. And it ended in a draw, which I thought was just. I thought it was fine. Why at that point go full Adrien Broner and be an asshole and start talking a bunch of shit to Vargas and then be ignorant about it? He said something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing, but Broner said that he beat Vargas's ass like Martin Luther King got beat. I don't know what I think he was referring to Rodney King. If you're going to mistake Rodney King, who was blasted on PCP and had a rap sheet longer than my dick, and my dick's above average, if you're going to compare that guy to Martin Luther King, you're a moron. We all knew Broner was a moron, but that level of moron, that's just extra level moron. That's down. Well, I won't do the Down syndrome disc. Okay, I won't do. I don't want to trigger some of you, but the fight is over at that point. You don't need to sell tickets. Why go there? I just don't get it. And for those of you who said, he was doing it for the camera, blah, 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 watch the post-fight press conference that some of the media guys have posted up online on YouTube. He doubled down in the press conference and even got even more ignorant and stupid, showed his ass even more. It was just unnecessary. Vargas handled it with class, and he basically, I think he said something like, you need to calm the hell down. Basically, like almost talking to him like a grown-up would talk to a toddler who was having a temper tantrum because, mommy wouldn't buy him his, favorite chocolate bar while they were checking out at the supermarket. That's basically how he talked to Broner. It was kind of funny because you just saw a grown man, an adult, and then you saw an idiot talking to each other. Anyway, I don't need to see the fight again. I didn't need to see the fight the first time, although it was entertaining. So both guys will go their separate ways from here. Broner will fight again. I don't know, is he a welterweight? Is he a junior welterweight? I don't know. He fights at these catch weights because he can't make any damn weight when he fights at a full 147 or 140. I don't know what he is, but he's going to make for entertaining fights wherever he goes, whoever he fights, right? So we'll be watching. I got to give him this much credit. He's not in boring fights. The guy's in entertaining fights. Now, for Jessie Vargas, I'm not quite sure where he goes here. A W here would have been real good for him and helped build him up to a fight at some of the bigger names at PBC. He still can go on and do that, but it's not the same. So both of these guys, this was kind of a parallel move for them. This is basically a parallel move for both fighters. Neither one really gained much from this, but neither one really lost much from this either. Sunday, April 22nd, in Russia, Ekaterinburg, Russia, there was a card with several Russian prospects, and there was a slight upset in the main event. Lightweight prospect Pavel Milikov, who lost several years of his pro career due to legal issues outside the ring, but he was undefeated going into this fight. He was KO'd in the 8th round by Indonesian fighter Daud Yordan, who is a good, steady veteran, who has some losses on his resume, but is better than his resume looks. He's better than his record looks. And it wasn't just a freak knockout. Milikov was down on all 3 cards at the time of the stoppage. So this was his first pro loss. And it was off a body shot. Devastating body shot. And this was a WBA eliminator for the number 2 spot at lightweight. So good stuff there for Daoud Yordan, who really this is kind of a second life for his career, right? Because he was kind of an afterthought coming into this fight with a lot of people. All right, guys, that's it for what took place last week. Let's preview what's coming up this week in the ring. Friday, April 27th, it is another Real Deal Holyfield card, this time in Louisville, Kentucky. Not much to say about this card, but it's at a venue called the KFC Yum Center. And I just thought that sounded funny, so I just wanted to mention it. Also Friday, Thompson boxing card from the Doubletree Hotel in Ontario, California. You guys know that Thompson Boxing, they always stream those cards on their social media, so be sure to check that out. Saturday, April 28th, Arthur Abraham, the veteran, is fighting in Germany. It's his first bout since the loss to Chris Eubank Jr. last July. Another card at Barclays Center this Saturday, man. Barclays, Brooklyn is staying busy. New York is staying busy this year in the fight game. They've been down the last couple years, but 2018, New York is killing it, man. Daniel Jacobs is fighting the Polish fighter Maciej Sulecki in a 12-round middleweight fight in the main event. And I should mention this is a Matchroom card on HBO. Jacobs' first bout of 2018, he last fought Luis Arias last November, scored a dominant but not the most exciting win. But he was fighting a guy who was trying to survive. Same for Sulecki, the first fight of 2018 for him. He last fought against Jack Holkay last October. Sulecki's going to come toward Jacobs, and you can't punch through a wet paper bag. So I think that style-wise, this is going to play right into Jacobs' strength, and he's going to turn in a really entertaining performance here. And I think he's going to score a stoppage win in the middle to late rounds of this fight. The co-main is a good heavyweight scrap between Jarrell Big Baby Miller and the Frenchman Johann Duhaupas. What will Big Baby weigh? This is what we always talk about with Jarrell Miller. He was 283 in his last fight against Mariusz Wach last November that he got rid of in 9 rounds. Wasn't the most thrilling affair. It took him a while to get to Wach. He eventually got him out of there, right? The fight before that against Gerald Washington, that was in July. He got Washington out of there in 8 rounds. He was 298. So he had lost 15 pounds in 5 months, 4 months. So if that trend continues, he should be around 270 something for this fight, right? I think he needs to get under 280 to be taken seriously as a heavyweight contender. And I know, yes, light on his feet. For such a big man, he's very nimble and athletic. He's so comfortable in the ring. All those, the time that he sparred with the Klitschko brothers and others, very, very experienced guy just in terms of fighting in the ring. Very light on his feet. However, that weight is eventually going to catch up with him. Guys, has there ever been a big fat ass who is the heavyweight champion of the world? No. How many big fat asses do you know that are dominant athletes that reign long? I can't name any. So, look, he's got that extra weight on him. He needs to get it down. Plain and simple. I'm not hating. I'm just telling you guys the damn truth. Now, I hear some people saying, well, he'll get in shape. He'll drop a bunch of weight if he gets the Anthony Joshua fight, which is rumored to be possibly for later this year, maybe late this summer or in the fall. Anthony Joshua making his American debut against Big Baby Miller in New York, should Miller be successful against Duhaupas. That's what people are saying. Oh, well, if he gets AJ, then he'll drop the weight. No. You dress for the job you want, not for the job you have, right? That's the best career advice I could give to a lot of you young guys. Dress for the damn job you want, right? Not the job you have. So if you're Jarrell Big Baby Miller, don't eat right now like you're fighting Johann Duhaupas. Eat and train like you're fighting Anthony Joshua or Deontay Wilder. That level of heavyweight, if that's what you want. Now, Duhaupas is 3-0 since his KO loss to a dirty Alexander Povetkin back in December of 2016. But it's just against journeyman, the last 3 fights, right? This is his first fight in the USA, however, since his TKO 11 loss to Deontay Wilder back in September of 2015. Let's not forget, he took Wilder 11 rounds. So if that version of Duhaupas shows up and he's properly motivated and in shape, he's going to take Miller rounds. And it's going to be interesting to see what he can get done. And it'd be interesting to see if Miller can look more impressive against Duhaupas than Wilder did. I think that's the test. The Povetkin fight, I'm just scratching that off the record with everything that was going on leading up to that fight. But if Miller, the test here is, can he look more impressive than Wilder did? And Wilder looked like crap at times in that fight, so I don't think that's going to be hard for him to do. I favor Miller by late knockout, possibly decision. We'll know a lot by the weight, and that includes Duhaupas. We'll know a lot about what he's bringing into the ring by how he looks at the weigh-in. Also, Katie Taylor is fighting on this card as well, so that's going to be interesting to see what she does. In Philadelphia, it's a top rank on ESPN card again, headlined by Jessie Magdaleno fighting Isaac Dogboe for the second defense of his WBO super bantamweight title. Magdaleno, who is 25-0 with 18 knockouts, hasn't fought since last April. And even last April, it was only a 2-rounder. It was a complete mismatch, his opponent. So this will be his first real stern test since winning that title against Nonito Donaire. Dogboe is from Ghana. He's 18-0 with 12 knockouts, 23 years old, won the interim WBO super bantamweight title in his last fight, which was in January in Ghana, which was a really, really cool scene with the crowd there in Ghana. If you haven't seen that fight, look for it on YouTube. It's all over YouTube. But guys, Isaac Dogboe, he's not a pushover. And these guys from Ghana, they're tough. This kid is coming into this fight motivated, and he's going to give Magdaleno plenty to think about. I think that is a very, very good main event, and I'm very, very excited to see that one. Don't sleep on that fight just because you haven't heard of Dogboe. I'm telling you, he's going to bring it. Also on that card, Jesse Hart, Philly fighter, is fighting Desmond Nicholson. For Hart, he's coming off that TKO 1 win in February, and then before that, that tough loss to Zurdo Ramirez last September. Nicholson's from Maryland, so you're going to have, Philly fighter. It's in Philly, and Maryland's not too far from there, so that's going to be a fun one with the local rivalry. Another Philly fighter, Bryant Jennings, the heavyweight. He's fighting Joey Dwejko. I think Dwejko is how you say it. Dwejko's nickname is Polish Thunder, so there you go. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that name. Maybe Dwejko. You guys out there who speak Polish, let me know if I'm anywhere near close. Jennings is 3-0 since his back-to-back losses to Vladimir Klitschko and Luis Ortiz in 2015. He had no fights in 2016, went 2-0 in 2017, and he fought once this year already back in February. So he's getting busy again after having some time off and getting some things on his team and management settled. I'm curious what Dwejko brings. He has an amateur record of 56-12. I want to see if he really is got Polish thunder in those fists. Anytime the heavyweights fight, I'm excited to see it. And I like Bryant Jennings. I think that he's an underrated, underappreciated heavyweight. I think he's a good quality, athletic American heavyweight. Shakur Stevenson is also on the undercard, so I'm sure they'll at least show highlights from his fight. Let's see if he can start to get some legs under him. He still looks a little like he's got Bambi legs, I call him. Just a little unsteady on his legs. And he's just a pup. So let's see if he starts to really, really grow and develop into a pro with the way he punches. Also, we have a PBC on Fox card from El Paso, Texas during the afternoon. It's the first card on network TV for PBC since Victor Ortiz and Devin Alexander fought to a draw, which was a robbery. Alexander deserved to win that fight on Fox back in February 2nd. So, main event, Josecito Lopez fighting Miguel Cruz, the Riverside Rocky, his first bout since last April. And Cruz is a 17-0 fighter with 11 knockouts. From Cincinnati, I think. Yeah, from Cincinnati, now resides in Florida. Now, I'm just trying to think. None of these guys on the card are from Texas. Actually, you know what? I take that back. In the co-main, Anthony Durrell is fighting Abraham Hahn, and Han is from El Paso. And he's another one of these guys who's better than his record indicates. He's got 3 losses, but 2 of the 3 losses were debatable split decisions, I believe. The one thing about Han, because I've seen him fight a couple times, he cuts a lot. His skin cuts. He's very susceptible to cuts. Anthony Dirrell has always been seen as the lesser of the 2 Dirrell brothers. But think about, he only has 1 loss. Andre has 3 now, albeit, Anthony has fought lesser opposition than Andre. But he's obviously aged better than Andre because he's been in less wars. He's just better preserved. And you got to favor him in this fight. Han is a champion kickboxer, and he's a black belt in Taekwondo. So he has a lot of experience fighting. But as I said before, his skin cuts up real good. He's a tough guy, not the most skilled, though. So I think Dirrell's skills should win out this fight. I got a feeling, though, that fight's going to turn real ugly. And I think there's going to be a lot of grappling and mauling, and Han's going to get cut, which, the blood will look good, but I don't know if the action in this fight's going to look good. I just got a feeling. I really, really hope I'm wrong, though. Also, Jorge Lara, Mexican fighter, going up against Claudio Moreiro of the Dominican Republic. Both of these guys are southpaws. Lara's 5'6", Moreiro is 5'8". He's coming off a KO7 loss to Jesus Rojas last September. So you got a Mexican guy and a Dominican guy fighting in El Paso. Well, I get why the Mexican guy is fighting there. So also on that card, the return of Erickson Lubin, coming off his KO1 loss to Jermall Charlo last October. So that's it for this week, guys. Once again, man, I can't believe my voice held up after all the episodes of 10 Count and then going through TNC today. Whew. I forgot to mention, man, Vasyl Lomachenko, media workouts tomorrow in Oxnard, California. I'm going to go up there and try to shoot some video of him working out. If I can get some interviews, I will. I'll post that stuff on the channel. Speaking of the channel, guys, please get the word out there. Let everybody know, let all your boxing peeps know about MOB. And thanks once again to all of our Patreon supporters. You guys are great. You truly, truly part of the MOB family. We can't thank you enough. All right, guys, that's it for this week. Episode 120 in the books. I'm Michael Montero. I'll see you at the fights.